Hi everyone, it's Simon Keeling here at weatherweb.net and it's Sunday the 13th of September. Thanks again for watching. Want to pick up on the MJO. Haven't really taken much notice of it over the last few weeks or so, but that's where we are at the moment with the MJO. Really active one actually. You can see here, look, the consensus going through phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and into 7 by the time we're getting through to the middle stages of October. Starts off very weak, but then predicted to become stronger heading into around about the 2nd of October, coming through into phases 5, 6 and 7. And it basically means a very changeable pattern underway. Now, if we look at what those phases generally mean, you notice how quickly we're going through phase 1 into phase 2. Get into phase 2 around about the 18th of September. Phase 3 coming up around the 25th of September. Phase 4 around the 28th of September. And then getting into phase 5 around about the 1st of October. So let's just take a look at what phases 1, 2, 3 and 4 mean. First of all, well, these are the means of the average conditions, 500 millibar heights, that we experience during phase 1 of an MJO. Now, the MJO this year offset to some extent and being modified by the strength of the El Nino and the warm water west of the US. But typically in phase 1, we're into low than normal heights across the country, extending through from the States. Well, that looks a certainly familiar pattern, doesn't it, from what we're going to be seeing during this week. Phase 2, again, remains with the unsettled theme, the low than normal heights through the country. And then as we get into phase 3, which is predicted to be around the 28th, sorry, not about 28th, around about the 26th of the month. By the time we get into phase 3, we are picking up a cooler, typically cooler northerly flow, certainly from a northerly quadrant, with a brief building pressure out towards the west. So it does kind of see this building pressure that we've been talking about and picks up on that around about the 25th, 26th of the month. I was saying about the 24th, but the MJO typically would put it in a little bit later on this one, according to the CFS. Okay, on to phase 4, and for phase 4, pressure starting to build off towards the east, look, trough out towards the west. We get this sort of pattern developing, so we actually get kind of warm southerly flow, and that would probably bring us in a southeasterly flow through the UK. Dry conditions there to close out September, and if we look at that, that took us through from about the 28th through to around about the 1st of October. And then getting into October, we pick up October phase 5, rapidly goes back into more unsettled conditions, look, with the trough down towards the south, higher than normal heights towards the north. So what happens is that ridge that I was just telling you about in phase 4, that ridge typically gets squeezed out. This comes down here and it results in us seeing the sort of pattern that we see here through a typical October phase 5, low than normal heights down towards the south, and a strong east to northeasterly flow, unsettled conditions south of the UK, turning ever more unsettled but higher than normal heights up towards the north. So that puts us into an October phase 5, which would take us from about the 1st of the month through to somewhere around the 4th of October. So this idea of this deterioration early part of October, quicker than I've certainly been predicting. And then into phase 6. So phase 6 is picked up around about the 5th of October, 6th of October, somewhere around that date. We find the ridge building back out in the Atlantic, low than normal heights off towards the east. This typically gives us that sort of pattern again. So we get a cool northerly flow, but it stays fairly dry for most, although showers and cool off towards the east. And then heading into phase 7, and phase 7 right at the end of the forecast period here, somewhere around the sort of 12th, well, 11th, 12th of October, something of that order. That would then put us into a 7, which looks something like this, with a high building back through trough in the Atlantic, and that sort of shape taking place. Now, of course, this is all based on the CFS, and it may not happen, but it's certainly, again, it still likes this idea of building pressure towards the end of the month, early part of October. Certainly gets that high back in again in the middle of the month, more so than I think it will. But that's what the MJO sees at the moment, trying to get that high coming back in. I'd still favour and forecast our idea of the high end of the month, and tending to stay there until the very early part of October before collapsing away into the middle and latter stages of October and things turning more unsettled. But of course, that's one that we're going to have to monitor and watch. Okay, just taking a look at where the GFS takes us through the course of this week. This is quite an interesting run. This fits in quite nicely with the story. That's the position today. Complex area low pressure off towards the west of the country. You've got to be watching for this during the next 24-36 hours, because just look at the strength of the winds here coming through the south of the UK, particularly through the Channel, across northern parts of France. Severe gales there, passing their way eastwards during the course of Monday, and really not relenting that much until the early hours of Tuesday morning. Notice that the GFS suddenly gets a bit more realistic with the idea of the trough. I've been telling you about the over-troughing of the GFS. And then we stay with low pressure really through the much of this week, so the unsettled weather continues. Some hefty bursts of rain coming back northwards during the course of Wednesday into Thursday, possibly windy again. Need to watch for the threat of strong winds throughout this week, actually. Position of the jet would be favourable too. Some pretty severe wind development. And then towards the end of the week, locally as away, brief northwesterly for a time heading into the weekend. Tries to build pressure in for a while. Watch the system out here of tropical origin moving into the Western Channel. Always suspicious when one of these things gets into the system, because the model's pretty dire at dealing with these getting into the system into the North Atlantic, but it's there and it's shown something tropical on there. I think what's more telling is the idea of the high building to the north and the lower than normal heights down towards the south, and of course that ties in quite nicely with that sort of idea. Remember, that was phase 5 at the beginning of October. It tries to slip us into that on that set of charts, but I think it's only transitory really. Pressure then building as we head towards the end of the month. So certainly the GFS wants to see that high, trying to get its way back in. Whether the pattern actually shapes out like that, I doubt it, but this narrative that it's trying to tell of the high building end of the month, early part of October, is one that we need to listen to and probably accept at this stage. Now, don't forget, if you do want more forecast, more in-depth forecast from us, you can go and check out our fast forecast, which is available through weatherweb.net. Or if you'd like to see what we do for farmers and get a specific forecast for the next week or so for farmers in more detail, get along to farmersweather.co.uk. Okay, I shall leave you with that for now. We can notify you by email though whenever this forecast is updated. Just send us an email to generalweather-subscribe@weatherweb.net and we can fire you off an email when the video is updated. Okay, I'll leave you with that for now, but whatever you're doing, thanks again for watching. Keep the sun shining and bye for now.